Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Taproom Success Podcast. I'm Carrie Shumway, and as always, I am joined by my good buddy Andrew Copeland. Andrew, how you doing today?
Gary, we're in June right now. I don't know where the year has gone, but great to see you.
Great to see you as well. It always happens, doesn't it? It flies by. It flies by. Well, here's a topic that flies by again, and we keep picking it up because it's so important, and it is our favorite to-go beer, Andrew. We're going to talk about to-go beer today. Are you excited about this?
I'm always excited to talk about this. I almost feel like we talk about it too much, but when you look at the numbers, we still need to be talking about it just as much. We'll dive into that in a moment.
Yeah. So, you know, the question is pretty straightforward, right? We say if we can train our staff to say, "Would you like to take any beer to go?" It's an easy question, but it's often overlooked or staff doesn't want to do it. Why do you think that is? Why is it always such a tricky question to actually get folks to ask?
Well, first of all, I'll kind of like look at the numbers from the past 2 years. We've been tracking this stat since essentially 2017. And, in 2022, we saw the most success with staff asking the question. In 2022, I apologize. Staff were asking the question a little over 22% of the time. So literally a little over 1 out of 5 times a staff member would say, "Hey, Carrie, do you want some to go?" This year, we looked at data up to present essentially, and they're only asking about 18.5% of the time. So they're not even asking as much as they should. And to go back to the question, why isn't why is it being overlooked as much as it is? I think we take for granted how many things someone working in the tap room has to do. So everyone who's working behind bar, you are doing a ton of things at once. You're building relationships, you're pouring beers, you're cleaning, just like brewery owners wearing so many hats. You wear a ton of hats. And unless you're being intentional about doing certain actions and turning them into habits, they can easily get overlooked. So if you want to sell more to go beer, if you want to do better at offering that second pint, if you want to do better at just building those relationships with the guests on the other side of the bar or in your tap room, you have to really figure out what you want to do and then put the effort in to do it. Because if you're not putting the effort in, no matter what it is, whether it's those things or to go beer, you're not going to get better at it. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said there in terms of turning the actions into routines, turning them into habits, and then it becomes somewhat involuntary and maybe feels more natural. Because I think that's one of the things you and I have talked about is maybe staff is reluctant to ask because they don't want to be salesy or pushy. Whereas what we've talked about, and maybe this word is making its way into the trainings, is that suggestive selling. Like I'm not trying
Suggestive
to sell
selling, it's
you.
some hospitality.
It's hospitality. I'm just going to make a suggestion for you. And, it's certainly up to the guests as to whether they want to or not. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the related part of this, which is the tips aspect of it. So if we look, the numbers that you've been able to generate show that, guests are 480% more likely to buy to-go beer when they're asked. And this is going to mean higher tabs, which means higher tips. But,
Yeah.
some people don't really think they're going to tip on to-go beer, but, why do you think that myth is out there?
So I'll give you the big thank you for kind of framing it as the 480%. I think in one of your articles, or maybe it was a podcast we did together on your platform years ago, you put it that way. And it's mind blowing to hear any number that large. So 4,800% more likely to purchase to go beer when asked. I think, when the guest is coming in and they're just buying a six pack or a growler or a crowler, and that's the only purchase coming in to buy that, yeah, they might not tip on that. But how many people, percentage wise, are coming into your tap room just picking up beer and not having a pint? So the data we look at is people coming in for whatever reason. Yeah, we're going to get the people who come in and just buy it to go, but we're also getting the people who are coming in to spend a few hours in your tap room. And when the team member is asking the question, "Do you want to take some to go?" The odds are, if the person is asking that question, they're doing a lot of other things that are right. That team member is probably engaging at a high level. So they're welcoming people, they're introducing themselves. They have this whole plethora of good qualities to them that are helping them build a relationship with the guest, but also make the visit more valuable. And what we see is that on visits where guests don't suggest some to go, the average tip's 22.5%. Still okay. But when they say, "Hey, Gary, do you want some to go?" It's nearly 24%. And once again, I do have to give credit to the taproom staff asking the question because they're doing a lot of other things right. We can't just say it's asking that question. It truly comes down to that high level of engagement. And the question about "do you want some to go" is just one of the many habits someone who has a high level of engagement with their guests is asking.
Yeah. Oh, and that's interesting too. I mean, you've said that before, and I guess it didn't stick with me, but it's not just the dollar amount that's higher, it's the percentage that's higher.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the percent's higher. When you look at it on the average dollar amount, because we have that too, when they don't ask the question, the average tip's going to be about $9.66, rounded it that way. When you look at the staff who does ask that question, nearly 12 bucks. So you're talking about a 350 difference dollar wise, and it does add up because when we see tabs where someone purchases to go beer, those tabs are 17% higher than on the visit where someone doesn't purchase it.
Yeah. So it's significant in terms of revenue for the tap room. It's also significant in terms of tips and wages for the staff. So it's obviously that win. And then the customer's going home with some beer they
And they're
get to enjoy
sharing
at
it
home.
with their friends. I'm going to try it for the first time. I want to go to your tap room next time I go out. It's a benefit in so many levels for everyone involved.
It's a virtuous cycle. So how can breweries kind of use this information, maybe higher tips, higher tip percentage to motivate their teams, motivate their staff?
So I'm going to dive into something that we all love. We all like making money, right, Carrie? People on the taproom staff, they're there for different reasons. Some are there for a summer job. Maybe they just like beer a lot and they really enjoy it. Maybe they want to open a brewery. Regardless of what those reasons are, people are there to make a little bit of money. So I want to break it down ways you can share this with your team to get them excited about how they can make more money. So I talked to a lot of brewery owners kind of leading up to this, and I found that the average taproom worker is probably working about 20 shifts per month, and they're probably handling about 20 tabs per shift. So that gives you 400 tabs per person per month. I mean, obviously there's different models, but that's the touch point we're going to use for this. So let's pretend that the average tap member, we're going to talk about what they're earning today. They're asking someone if they want to go beer a little over 18% of the time. Out of those asks, about 44% say yes. And still, 7.5% of people are going to buy it on their own. But based on this number of those percentages they're asking, and we have this on the blog if anyone wants to dive deeper into the numbers, they're going to make about 200 bucks in tips per shift, which amounts to about $4,000 in tips per month. That's what we're seeing across the board right now. So now let's translate it for everyone who wants to see the money, what they could be making by asking every guest. And once again, not everyone's going to say yes, but by asking every guest, you're going to get it's be more likely people will say yes. So if you ask every guest, so 4.3 guests out of 10 will say yes to take some home. And based on this, the average team member is going to make $219 per shift. So about 20 bucks more. And over the month, it's going to amount to nearly 4,400 in tips. It's about 18, 19 bucks extra per shift, just shy of 400 bucks extra by asking this seemingly pretty basic question. So if you just get that one question in your repertoire, and hopefully you get trained on doing other more engaging things, as a bartender server, you alone could be bringing in about 400 bucks month or more per month just by asking that question. So one simple habit, you can bring in your take home pay increase to about 400 bucks more per month.
Yeah, I like that. It also puts a little bit more power in people's hands because I think we're always like, well, when am I going to get a raise and this and that? But this is a way to use the data to essentially give yourself a raise if you're a staff, if you're a server, is to just simply ask that question. And as you said earlier, kind of ingrain that action into a routine and a habit.
And just like you talk about, you don't have to be salesy. I went to a brewery the other day. I had this really nice, like hoppy Pilsner. And if they had asked me to take some to go, I 100% would have said yes. It was one of the best beers I had in a really long time, but they didn't ask. I was in a kind of hurry to get back home. And so I didn't even think about it. So sometimes you're not inconveniencing people when you ask, you're reminding them of something that they forgot. And people get excited when you remind them of something. Oh, yeah, that does sound awesome. I really would love some of this in my fridge. So no one's going to get upset if you ask them to take some to go.
Yeah,
Unless you ask them like, 5 different times on their visit, which you shouldn't do that because that's not a good practice. But,
right,
asking them once at the end as they're closing the tab out, no one's going to get irritated. If they really don't want it, no, I'm sorry, maybe next time.
right. So we talk a lot about hospitality, customer engagement, and these things go hand in hand with upselling. So do you think that encouraging to-go beer is more about sales or is it more about the guest experience?
Yeah, I mean, kind of echoing what I just said, a little of both. Because on the sales side of things, it's going to get the tap room worker and the owner, and I'll dive into the impact for the owners in a minute, they're going to make more money because we're in business to sell things, right? We can't just give things away for free. So, yeah, sales wise, you're going to get more money, but the guest experience, you're giving the guests something they maybe didn't even know they needed, but then they're taking it home. They're sharing it with their friends. They're reminded of your brewery every time they open up their fridge till the six pack's gone. It's kind of connecting them a little bit more to your brand. If their only experience with your brand isn't within your four walls, it could be easily forgotten. But when you can break that barrier and take that beer and your branding and your product somewhere else, it just makes you more memorable.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting way to communicate this to staff too, who are maybe reluctant and don't like the word upsell or sales, but they do like the word customer service and guest service. So if you say this is really part of the guest experience, that's just sort of a different way of framing, the action that we're asking folks to take, by asking people for to-go beer. So it's maybe less about sales and more about enhancing the customer experience.
It's 100% about enhancing the customer experience. So, for all the brewery owners and managers listening right now, we've talked about how it can make more money for your team, which is great because when your team can make an extra 400 bucks a month, they're going to be happier. There's going to be better retention. It makes everybody's life a little bit easier. But what does it mean for your brewery's bottom line? So, let's look at it again. If you have one staff member, 20 shifts a month, 20 tabs per shift. Currently, they're making you about 850 bucks on to-go beer a month. That one person. If they're asking the average amount of time and the guests are buying it, what we see across the board, they're generating about 850 bucks in to-go beer a month. This is from a data set of thousands across the industry. But if they asked every single guest, which probably isn't possible, there's going to be some you're just not going to ask for whatever reason. But if you're asked close to that number, that's going to bring in about 2,600 bucks a month per that one person asking the question. That's $1,758 more per month from just one person on your team asking that question. So nearly $1,800 in extra sales carry per month. The numbers speak for themselves. I'm not making this up. This is what the data says. This is what they say is going to happen when you ask these questions. And that's per staff member. So nearly 1,800 bucks per staff member just by asking the question. It's tough times right now. If you want to make more money in your tap room and build your brand, this is one simple thing that you can really train your staff to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so maybe say a little bit more about training them because what is I think the concern is that people don't want to feel salesy, but they also don't want to sound like a robot, like a script. Um, what do you think is the most effective way for breweries to turn this concept into a daily habit without
Yeah,
making
we
it feel
definitely don't
forced?
want people to feel like robots. We don't want it to feel pushy. I always like, oh, Carrie, it looks like you really enjoyed that beer. Do you know we have some to go? Or I know you're visiting from out of town. Would you like to take some back home to share with your friends? By getting to know the guest over their visit, you can really personalize it to them. Hey, Carrie, I know you didn't have it today, but we've got your favorite beer you ordered last time. You want to take some with you? Just finding a way you can connect with the guest, show them value. I know you love to create that scarcity and sense of urgency. Do it for your guests. Let them know we might not have this next time. If you really want to, try it or have some more, you got to take it home today.
Yeah. Well, with a
You
lot of
gotta.
for sure. I mean, with a lot of these styles, that is the absolute truth is, you do these one-offs and once it's done, it's done. So I think letting people know that is just giving them the little push that they need to say, yeah, actually, I did want to get, I didn't realize it was going to run out. So again, I think it's fair to say put it under the guest experience umbrella, and it's a win across the board for everybody. But I like that natural because you're right. It's not like we can't just say, hey, read this to every guest, but it's if you're getting to know them, if you're connecting, if you're really doing all the things that you've preached which, with engagement, then this is just a natural extension of that.
And for everyone who says, Andrew, we've heard you talk about to go beer 100 billion times over the past few years. Well, yes, you have. Thanks for listening. But as a whole, our industry still has a lot of room to go. Going back to the number I said in the beginning, guests are only being asked that question 18.3% of the time. It's not a lot. We can do better. We all want more money, whether we're working behind the bar or we own the business. We all want to do things to become more successful, and this is a great little thing you can do.
Yep. And we're not going to stop talking about it until we get 100% of the time when you and I go out, they ask us because that hasn't
We'll wait a
happened
few
once
more
yet.
episodes to do another to go one, Carrie, but I think we've hit it home pretty good today.
I would agree. All right. So for everybody listening, please think about this. It's a great way to, double, triple, quadruple your to-go beer sales, which you can have a real significant positive impact on your bottom line. So, as Andrew said, we're struggling out there now, but this is kind of some low-hanging fruit that you can take advantage of to drive that profitability.
And for everyone, who wants to get better at this, but you need a support system, I mean, that's why Taproom Success is here. Our membership, as part of the Taproom Success membership, we have monthly masterminds where we're going to talk about things like this. We're going to talk about what events are working. We're going to talk about the marketing strategies that you're seeing results with and maybe not seeing results with. And each month, Carrie and I are going to ask you, how's it going? Are you making improvements in this? So if you want that accountability, so we can just say, hey, Carrie, are you training your team to sell more to go beer? We'll ask you every single time and we can get better together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's such a great experience. You get to connect with other people, network. We talk about it a lot where we're fortunate to get to go to a handful of in-person events every year, but this is a way to do it every single month, and you don't even have to leave your brewery. You just jump on, you connect with breweries from across the US and even abroad, and just meet somebody new, network, learn some new ideas. It's very cool. And then we bring in our monthly experts. Last time we talked marketing and the use of AI. Everybody's all hot and heavy for AI, and we're getting there. Slowly. I'm sort of dragging myself but it's pretty amazing. So we have an expert come and talk about that and give you some scripts and playbooks that you can follow for your own tap room.
Well, awesome, Carrie. And for anyone ever interested in learning more, and we hope you are, go to taproomsuccess.com and we'll see you soon. Cheers.